too big a word. That's like mayonnaise. I'm sure that's the biggest word I know.
Hello, everyone, and welcome on into Cover 2 College Bowl Edition, because we are in the thick of the New Year's Day bowl game preparations right here. I'm Thomas Viola, and of course, joining me, as always, our prop master extraordinaire, Chris Kay, the realist. Chris, happy almost New Year here.
Yeah, happy New Year's, man. This is it. This is great college football today, tomorrow. I love that things have turned out where we don't have to worry about NFL. We just get to watch some college football and sit around. So capping off a great holiday, extended time off. So yeah, this is the best time of year.
Yeah, very excited. What are you doing for the New Year tonight?
Dude, I'm old with a kid, so I'm doing nothing. I'm going to hang out with some friends like down the street. I live outside the city, like in the burbs, so I'm not about that life anymore, Tom. I'm not young and agile like you.
Oh, man, I got to enjoy it for a little while longer because it's going to be gone before I know it.
You're just not going to want to do it soon, too. Like there comes at one point I liked doing this kind of go out like crazy type of stuff, but not anymore. I'm old.
Yeah. Well, we might be old, but I'll tell you, Alabama has not woken up for their game today.
They're moving a little bit. If you see me look over this way, they're about to score again. Great for anybody that had Milrow anytime touchdowns around like the 5. The only problem is no timeouts, but yeah. I told people that had no problem doing this at 1:30 because the game would be over by then. But I didn't realize it would be the reverse. I didn't realize it would be Michigan that would be crushing Bama.
Yeah, but hey, I mean the SEC reputation has taken a big hit so far. We'll see if that continues through the actual college football playoff with some big games coming up this weekend. But we do, or not even this weekend, tomorrow. But we do have to get to one game before any of them here because we have the Illinois-South Carolina game, Chris. And if we're going to talk about props, we should probably start with the one that's kicking off pretty dang soon.
Is it Illinois-South Carolina or is it Washington-Louisville? One of them starts at 2, one of them starts at 3. I want to say it is... Oh boy, it's Washington-Louisville. Let's rock out that one first. We have plenty of time, but yeah, let's rock it out.
All right, there we go. We will go to that one first. You had told me South Carolina, so
I didn't correct myself. You didn't.
Natish is getting on me already that it's Washington, but no, you were the one who told me South Carolina.
It was me. Yeah, it was me. Yeah. I'll blame me.
All right. So let's talk about some props here. We got Louisville going up against the Huskies. Where are we looking first? Because we're not getting too much of an edge. I can't imagine you're loving the Desmond Williams under.
No, Damon Williams is a true freshman. He came in to start at the very end of the year. He played a bunch throughout the season. He's a talented young guy who I think could have a huge season next year, but it's just not now. We have them maybe 5% higher in terms of like rush usage on the season, a little bit more push to that because Will Rogers was not a runner. Mm-hmm. So if you want to look at maybe like the receiving yards, I think that's where a lot of the different edges will come. We like the unders on like Jeremiah Hunter, the receiver 3 for them, Kaliki Latu, who's the tight end, Giles Jackson, and he's the receiver 1/2 with Denzel Boston. So if you look at like Boston, if you look at it like Giles Jackson, that's just kind of a higher number for a guy in a passing offense that's going to be slanted, we think, towards the run game. So not too surprising that we like the unders here. I think it's perfectly fine. I think Damon Williams has a little bit of experience, but this is a game that I think, fairly straightforward in terms of what we're going to see, at least on the Washington side of things.
Yeah, I mean, we have loved these props all year. Those wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 unders. So no surprise here that Jeremiah Hunter is another one that we're looking to and saying he's probably not going to get the usage to get over this number.
Yeah, when you move an offense 5%, maybe even a little bit more towards the run, it really limits the kind of targets that we're going to see towards like a receiver 3 or a tight end like Latu. So, Damon Williams is not the most talented of passers. Like coming into the year, you liked him because he has athletic. He's like 5'11", $180 type athletic runner type. Great young quarterback that I think is going to be really fun in the future. But, if I'm looking at an under of like 38.5 yards on a receiver 3 and a kind of a run first offense, like I'm going to be a fan of that. So I have no issue with it. Boston, I think, is really their number one guy. No edge there, but Giles Jackson. Like if you go to receptions, I think Giles Jackson has an under 5.5, which I know we love these types of bets here. Yeah, Hunter at 3.5 is a solid one as well. So I think both Jackson and Hunter, if you like going, attempts type targets or like a type of props, I think this is the play. Otherwise, I think the yardage is just fine as well.
Yeah. And I mean, 3.5 receptions is a big number for a wide receiver 3 to cover.
Yeah. I mean, receiver 3 with I like to say like a tight end with a pulse. Like I think Latu unders make sense and they're good. But like when you combine it and Jonah Coleman's a running back that is going to get, we have him at 1.6 receptions. Like he's active in the pass game as well. So that's just a lot of mouths to feed. I like probably, I don't know. They're both really, really close, the Jackson and the Hunter, but I think I'd probably lean Jackson under because the number is so high at 5.5. I think he's only hit that like once in the last 4 or 5 games too. So I think really if, come in here in a little bit, 20 minutes, maybe the game starts. I think if you have some time, run and get that one in because I think some of these unders here in the Washington passing attack are good. Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely going to be the case. Now, what about the rushing yards market here? Anything that you're liking at all? This Jonah Coleman number on Fliff, if it's real, that's 10 yards too low.
I think it is real. It might be. This started around 65.5, 63.5 this morning. So it's bumped a good bit. It's kind of hard to swallow when you could have gotten it 10, 12 yards better this morning. But I imagine that's just because people hit it with the release of the projections to subs. So I still like it. This is not surprising. We have them a little bit more run heavy. 17 runs would probably be towards the top of his like usage on the season per game. But I think makes sense. This should be a tight ball game. And, 65.5. Like this is one of my more favorite plays of the day. Like when things got released, I went ahead myself and hit the 65.5 on Coleman. So I think that's a great play.
Nice. Jared Ruby got it Jared Ruby got it as well. Natish asking if there are any Coleman alts you're liking at 89 yards projected. I'm not imagining that.
No, not really.
Stuff there.
No, he's not really the elusive big back. Like 17 for 89 is fairly straightforward.
We're not expecting him to be ripping off 90-yard runs.
No, this is not Jeremiah Love, who we can get to in a little bit, but like he's a good college running back with maybe some NFL upside down the road, but like he's not a guy that's gonna break a 60-yarder and knock on wood because he's gonna do it now. But yeah, do like that. If you look at the Louisville side of things, Harrison Bailey, the quarterback, is essentially second, third stringer. He's bounced around from Tennessee. He lost the job to Hendon Hooker, was in that battle years ago and didn't get it. Then he went to UNLV, didn't play here at Louisville. He's not very good. So if you look at like the receiving yards, I think the unders that we have on like Mark Redmond, the tight end, makes sense. Lacey and Bell are really, the thing he mentioned here is like Ja'Cory Brooks is not playing. Amari Huggins-Bruce is not playing. They're fairly thin in terms of the wideout room. So it's going to be a lot of Chris Bell, Colin Lacey, but Harrison Bailey's pretty bad. I'm actually surprised the number is as high as it is, to be quite honest. But I think if you wanted to throw some under bets on Bell, Lacey, and Redmond, I think all of them make sense. And then conversely, when you have a bad quarterback with a dynamic, talented running back who can catch the football, what do? You concoct some easy passes to the running back and Isaac Brown. So yeah. I think, 11.5 number and volatile for sure, but I think it makes sense considering the game script. It'll be tight. Brown is super talented and, 3 receptions. He's going to get plenty of targets.
Hey, I mean, that's the kind of 3 receptions, and it's only 11.5 yards.
11.5. He's a big, like if you go to his rushing line, this thing has moved. He's the type of running back that pops off like a 60-yarder. His line is over 100.
Jesus.
We do like the under. I would say, me personally, I'm not going to bet an under on Isaac Brown. I think it makes sense, but it's such a huge number. But it's really just him and Watson left in the backfield, and their quarterback sucks. So I think I would just prefer not to worry about them just going ground and pound. But I do love the over in the passing for him because I think just check downs and easy stuff just makes so much sense considering what the offense will look like.
Yeah. I mean, that's anytime we can get Captain checked down. And if any guy that you're projecting for 3 receptions, the odds of that being like the math is not adding up to an 11.5-yard game.
Yeah, it's actually surprising that it would be that low in terms of like a yardage line. What is he? Do we have any receptions for Louisville is the question.
Let's find out.
So slight to Lacey, the bell is slightly high just because of the fact they only have 2 receivers. Isaac Brown, yeah, it's minus 184. So it is what it is, but like over 1.5, I don't know. It feels really good to me. Maybe you could do like a fun same game parlay or something with it and throw it out there. But yeah, I like, I think, we like the easy ones like receptions and attempts and types of stuff like that. So Brown over, even with like the 184 there is a good bet.
Yeah. All right. Now let's talk about the next game that we've got up on the board here, because we have that South Carolina game now.
Yeah, this one's got some context and some things up in the air to talk about, right? Like looking at South Carolina just missed the cut really basically from making the playoff. Their top 15 team. Sellers is a runner, but he has popped off pretty significantly in the last like 4 or 5 games. When it comes down to it, though, like you look at all the season numbers, look at everything, it really doesn't look like a good game for him to be throwing for a ton of yards. So we like the under there. They will be missing their running back and Rocket Sanders. He's going to go pro. So if we go to rushing yards, this is probably one of the more favorite speculative plays, I think, of the day is this Oscar Attaway over. If you look at the notes in Discord that we posted, basically we have Attaway and the other, I think it's Juju McDowell, whoever the RB2 is. We have them fairly close in terms of usage, but we could easily see Attaway get significant usage and be the clear running back 1. So we like the over on Attaway. I really like it. I've bet it myself. If you can bet, like this is like a ladder type option for me when we think this kind of feels like Iowa yesterday. If you bet the Iowa game, Kamari Moulton and Jazion Patterson, like we were pretty sure it's Moulton. We felt good about it. It was Moulton. He ended up getting the majority of the carries, but Patterson got some as well. Both overs hit. And, we feel conservative with this Attaway projection. The game that Rocket Sanders didn't play, he outcarried the backup 14-5. Small sample, 1 game. What can you really do with it? But, this 57.5 line is low enough where I think, like, even if it's closer to that running back by committee type, I like the over here.
Yeah. I mean, it is so much tougher to figure out with these bowl game scenarios and certain player uncertainty that we have in those games. But we do have a little bit of a small sample size to go with. The projection makes sense here. All right. Moving on. What about receiving yards?
Yeah, not surprisingly, we like some unders on these guys. Josh Simon, I would avoid that at like a 2% edge. Nick Harbor, I think, is a really good under. They have a bunch of receivers: Gage Larvadan, Jared Brown, Mazio Bennett, Delvion Campbell, like a bunch of different guys that are in the mix. And so, a line of nearly 40 to me is solid. 34.5 on FanDuel, still good. Don't love it as much as like if you played underdog like myself, like a 30.5 is obviously much better. But when you have 5 to 7 guys in the mix and your quarterback is a 223 number, like it's not surprising that we like some unders here. Mazio Bennett really is a super volatile play. Could be anywhere from receiver 2 to receiver 5 on the day. So just keep that in mind. If it's a smaller number, 16.5 is really, really small. I'm surprised it's actually that low, to be honest.
Yeah, that is a very, very tiny number for him to get over, and going to be a lot of volatility in that one.
Yeah, but I mean, switching sides, I think, I hope I don't jinx myself by saying this. I think probably my favorite bet of the day is this Zachary Franklin over. And they actually, at least this morning when we released it, had an over on receptions. So over 55.5 on Fliff. What to know here is that basically, look at on Fliff, we get that too. Pat Bryant, their other receiver, that's a top guy for them. They basically are like 25 to, I would say like 28% type guys on the season. Franklin, I think, was even closer to like 31% on the season in terms of target share. And now we've bumped him up because Pat Bryant isn't playing in this game. They don't really have any other targets. Like Tanner Arkin is at tight end, is not really viable. LZ is like maybe not even going to play. We have him assumed in. They have just a thin receiver room, and there's a good connection between Altmaier and Franklin that, my personal favorite bets of the day, Zachary Franklin overs. That 55.5 or what have you line for yards is great. And obviously anytime we can get receptions, we want to take that as well.
Yeah. And that reception one, I mean, you have to think we're seeing more of an edge on the reception market here than we were with the non-Fliff books. Like the line has moved a little bit, and Fliff is still giving you a very big advantage there. So if you're going to attack this, reception is probably the way to go on rec books. Receiving yards, good if you're on Fliff.
Yeah, so I think all around some solid ones here. McCray, that's one of those volatile running back plays. I would just avoid that personally. And then I think if you look at the rushing market for Illinois, there's a little bit with McCray as well to like. This is another committee type approach. Aiden Lawfery is in the mix. Altmaier can run it a little bit. When it comes to these numbers, McCray was typically in the 40s. We get a 54.5 on Fliff. I like it. Don't necessarily love it on sites that you can combo it. Like I did like a combo on Underdog. Mm-hmm. They give you even more of a higher number. Like I think a combo under makes sense because McCray's not really used in the pass game. We like the under for both, so why not get a bigger number and go under on both? You might get beat by a 40-yard reception, but like that would be so atypical for a guy like McCray. He's like a big plotter type, big running back, so not really used in the passing game.
Yeah, FanDuel just took Oscar down as well.
I think on FanDuel, at least this morning, you could bet alts only. You couldn't bet like an actual line. You could only bet the alts, but yeah, they might have just taken it down as well.
Okay, yeah, Jared's saying that the alternate lines are still up.
Which we like the ladder there already. So like if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do.
Yeah. All right. How about, is there anything else in this in the games today, or do we want to move on to tomorrow, or are there?
We got plenty of games today. We got Baylor LSU's today, and so is Penn State-Boise State. So we can finish out the non-playoff games and start with this Baylor game.
Sounds good.
I don't know. Sawyer Robertson has been really good this year. We looked at the numbers, man. This is like pretty legitimate. Like I would avoid this. I wouldn't bet an under on Sawyer Robertson. We've loved over us on him this season. I would just avoid this. Same with Nussmeier. Nussmeier is a little bit closer to like legitimate. Like nothing wrong with betting. It's almost 7% edge. 25 is a pretty huge number. And LSU's missing a bunch of guys. CJ Daniels, Kyron Lacey. They're down their top two tight ends. Mason Taylor is like a really good college tight end. Sounds like he's not playing. So like he's missing a lot of targets. 285 number is pretty big. So like under there makes sense. But largely, passing yard markets not our best. So I would steer clear of it if you don't love it yourself.
Yeah. Now, how about the receiving yard market? Are we getting anything in there that makes
gives me a tingle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Aaron Anderson is fine. It's a good bet. Like it, don't love it. This Chris Hilton one is tough. We show a 40% edge, but he's like a big play threat. And with all these receivers being mixed around and, who's starting, who's not, what's to say Hilton's not the receiver 1, gets like 25 to 28% of targets? What's to say he's not the receiver 3 and gets 16, 18% of targets, right? And so this is a volatile one. This is one of the ones that is like rare, bigger number, but still volatile just because his role could be one thing versus another and they're completely different. So I like the bet, but that one would be a like, not love, even at like a 40% edge.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on because that's one that pops off the screen for you here. You mentioned Presley. What about these Cameron and Trigg numbers that we're seeing? Yeah,
so Trigg's a tight end that's talented, but this 38.5 number is just too high for me personally. And then you look at like a Josh Cameron and Hal Presley. These guys it's just a bunch of used receivers. Like Ashton Hawkins is going to play. It sounds like their whole receiving group is going to be healthy and playing. So that's why I think the unders on Cameron and Trigg and Presley makes sense. Hawkins, we have him slated to be one of the better receiver targets for them. And that's why we like a slight over. I probably would avoid that, but I think the other unders all make sense to me.
Now, how about the rushing game when it comes to these two teams? Not
Just big-
showing much on the board.
Yeah, just big numbers. If you want to look at like maybe a random ladder play, and this kind of goes into the same thing with like Oscar Attaway, where the running back distribution could be completely one thing or another. To Josh Williams is their like old veteran who's been around forever. I think he played with Joe Burrow many years ago. Like, why does he keep getting the football? But he keeps getting the football. If they decide, hey, we want to shift more towards the younger backs, that would be Caden Durham, and he is a big play threat. So I could see, we don't like the edge on him. If you want to throw something for fun out there at like a big game from Caden Durham, I wouldn't have any issue with it. But largely, nothing really to see here. Bryson Washington's lined pretty aggressively, and we agree with it. And it's not necessarily even available at many, if any, books.
I mean, yeah, it's a very tough sell on any of these when you're not even seeing an edge pop up on the screen.
Yeah. I probably would avoid the run game here and just target some unders in the pass game. Mm-hmm. If you want to stick with the run market and go to tonight's Boise game, I'm curious. What are you thinking? You going under or over on Genty?
I'm saying that we're going to have an edge, and I'm saying he's going over the number.
You think? No, we like the under. Nothing.
Oh, no. I was saying we're going to have an edge on the under.
Oh,
and we're going over. That being said, 131 yards.
Dude, 30 rushing attempts. Like, we could not be more aggressive on his usage.
Yeah, like this is a cartoonish projection.
It's crazy. But we have him at like 83% of carries, which is the highest.
How did this guy lose a Heisman?
Yeah, it's crazy because I don't think we've ever given somebody this many, this percentage in terms of usage. But you look at the total, you look at the matchup, it just pushes towards an under, and it makes sense. It's scary. Nobody loves going Genty under, but like, has Genty played a defense as good as Penn State's? You could argue Oregon for sure. Let's look at real quick. I'll tell you what he did against them. He had a bunch of receptions and use in the passing game. 25 for 192 against Oregon week 2.
Oh my!
Yeah. It's tough.
Nitish shows under yards over attempts parlay. As long as he doesn't break out for a big one, the under yard should win. Yeah, but the problem with that is, Nitish, this dude breaks a big one like every quarter.
Every game he breaks a big one. Yeah, that's a tough one. It's like Jeremiah Love. Like, yeah, he's gonna. I remember he gets so many carries, but it comes down to, does he break off a 75-yard run? Does he break off a 65-yard run? And when the line gets lower, like to 130, 131, it's even more impactful. But Penn State is an elite defense, just like Oregon's. Week 2, things are a lot different than what they are now. And Penn State will have also had 10 days to prepare for it. So I think they're going to try to make Maddox Madsen beat them in the passing game. So,
I am so curious here with this 11. Like, that's a lot of points against a Boise team that almost went down and beat Oregon.
It is, but week 2, like, it's so long ago. You wonder how much you can really take from it. Genty, you could say, was fresher because it was week 2.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It's not the most fun way to bet. Sometimes I've heard people talk about it like in fantasy sports, like draft players that you enjoy watching, that like you want to watch, and the teams. Yeah. Like, do you really, no offense, do you really want to sit all season, watch the Jets, the Bears, the Browns? Like, it's not really a great way to live your Sundays.
Yeah. No offense taken. I've stopped watching the Jets on Sundays.
So like, do you really want to sit there and root against Genty tonight? Like, I think the numbers say root against Genty, but like your heart might say, I'd rather just avoid this and look elsewhere.
This feels like a game where if I do go and bet that plus 11, they're going to get blown out. And if I don't bet it, they're going to win outright. And I'm going to be real mad at myself.
Yeah, that's 100% how it's going to go. I'm not completely sold on Penn State from like a winning perspective, but I'm pretty sold that they can kind of keep this offense like slowed down. Like, Oregon's offense is just elite, and that's why they put up so many points in the Big Ten championship game. Yeah. Boise State's is not as well-rounded as Oregon's is.
Yeah, but you do have Genty. All right.
You do have Genty. But I do think the passing game is something to target here. We like Maddox Madsen overs And this line has moved. I want to say, if you want to click it, I think this has moved from like mid 160s,
Yeah.
160 even to 174. So the public generally agrees there. I don't know. They have some viable, good targets out wide, a tight end that's like legitimate. And Genty has not been used in the pass game, but does the narrative of like checkdowns and elite defense where they need to get the ball out quickly, does that help with like the passing game? I don't know. I mean, I like the over here personally. It's one of my more favorite bets, but picking overs on passing yards has been tough at times.
I mean, it's also like you said, they're going to try and make Madsen beat them. Well, he's going to have to do something.
Exactly. And the number is not that high, right? Like, we're not talking about 225 or 250. Like, conceivably, you could get 150 yards and a half. Like, they could be down 2 touchdowns and be forced to throw it, be very average at it, and still get 100 yards. So 125 yards. Not that difficult to get 100 to 125 and a half.
Especially if Penn State's offense is cruising and they maybe don't necessarily need to go all out. And like, let's face it, some defenses in college let up off the gas when they have a 3-score lead.
I mean, how many times have we lost an under on garbage time where like teams up by 17 points and the defense just says, okay, you can take your 10 yards every single time type of thing.
Exactly. That is the kind of thing that happens. Nitish asking if we have an edge on the Genty over. Yes, we do, Nitish. We like that 27.5.
Something we have bet, but not necessarily talked about on the prop show here. Kaytron Allen over rushing attempts. For most of the season, I did not understand why they were giving him attempts as much as they were. But here they are. He's looked better recently. They've used him a bunch. And I don't know, 10.5 feels like such a small number for a game that feels like Penn State's going to play from ahead.
Yeah.
Could try to control the football, not make mistakes. Like, will they overpower a Mountain West defensive line? Like, I think Penn State's defense, Boise State's defense is solid, but Allen, Singleton, that's a pretty good running back duo. And then conversely, right, like Singleton has not been used as much as I thought he should be. But like even against Oregon, a super close ball game where Singleton, I want to say, ran for like 7-8 yards per carry, still didn't hit this 14.5 number. So I think you could do the under on this as well and like it there.
I mean, yeah, and this is God. I wish I had Fliff. I think I'm gonna have to make some phone calls and get an account set up because this is like you're getting 2 extra carries on Kaytron Allen there.
Yeah, that's a surprise. We'll come back to don't let me forget. Come back to rushing attempts on Notre Dame, but I do think this game has a lot of like profitable bets. Yeah. Like looking at the receiving lines here, I think there's some fun ones to bet. Specifically, I like the Cam Camper line is a solid line. If you're a believer in Maddox Madsen, then I think you have to like the over on Cam Camper. Genty, he has not done well in the passing game. Like he's not been used a ton in the passing game. So if you go off the full season of his like resume, like this is a great under. If you think things change because it's the playoffs and I don't know, the matchup forces him in the passing game, then like I would avoid it. But the numbers say like he has not come close to this number all season. So a good edge on the under there if you wanted to find another way to bet this one.
Yeah, I mean, you have a bunch of ways that you can attack it. You can spread out your angles a little bit more. You got a lot of options here.
Yeah. But yeah, let's go to Notre Dame. Actually, yeah, let's go to Notre Dame. We can move away from Boise. We got 3 playoff games tomorrow. Notre Dame's the ending one, right?
Yep.
Riley Leonard over. Where have you heard this story? It's
we love it every week, Chris.
Every week we're a glutton for punishment. I would avoid this 6% edge. Nope. Sorry, learned my lesson. I'll just avoid Georgia defense. I just don't think it's worth tackling. And honestly, I think I would avoid a 9% edge here with Gunnar Stockton. You see it at like a FanDuel 5% or whatever. Bet online 4.5%. Like we just don't fully know what Georgia's going to plan to do offensively. We have them like 7.5% more rushing because Stockton is a runner compared to Carson Beck, who could run, but really was not running much all season. And we haven't seen enough of a sample size to say if Stockton's any good. So I would avoid this. Instead, look at the receiving lines.
Real
See your
quick, we
completions.
do have a big edge on pass and completion unders to Riley Leonard there.
Let's see. It's close. It's close. I haven't dabbled enough in completions because it's just typically not on underdog and stuff like that until like late. And I just have already invested my money elsewhere. But, 18.5 is a pretty big number for a Notre Dame team that, wants to control the football, run it. They got Jeremiah Love is supposed to be healthy. Jadarian Price has been looking good. Riley Leonard will run it 10 to 12 times. So I think, you could go under 18.5 and feel pretty good about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we like technically speaking an over on Stockton, but I think the under here on all the receivers are valid, right? Dominic Lovett hasn't done much all season, or I should say the last month. I don't know if he even caught a pass last week or against Texas a couple weeks back. Arian Smith is a big play threat, deep balls and screens. So it's a little volatile, but if he's only catching screens, I trust Notre Dame's defense to wrap him up. And then Dylan Bell is kind of an gadgety in terms of he can get some rushing attempts. They use him different ways, but if you don't believe in the quarterback, I think all of these unders look good.
I mean, that's typically the way it's going to go if you don't believe in the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the number's so low for Stockton to begin with. I think they use their tight ends more this game personally. And maybe even ATN. I would avoid this ATN number. This is volatile anyways, but I think I would avoid the ATN under here. I think they use tight ends a good bit. Use some bigger sets, which would all push us towards unders all the way around in the receiving game.
Yeah. And I mean, you can expect this to be a little bit of that classic ground and pound SEC Notre Dame football.
I want to say that the implied projected score is 21-19. This
isn't supposed to be an air it out kind of game.
This is a game that I should say that this is a playoff where we see a bunch of good defenses playing. I think the worst defense we'll see is Boise State, then Arizona State, but Texas great defense, Georgia, Notre Dame great defenses, Penn State's great defense, Oregon great defense, Ohio State great defense. So it just good defenses all the way around. We see a lot of low totals.
Yeah.
So,
all right, how about the rushing game for these two teams here?
Yeah, we like only a small over on Jeremiah Love rushing yards. And that's really only at Prize Picks. We like Jadarian Price slightly over there at about 9% on FanDuel. I think the one to target this, though, is in the rushing attempts. So if you want to slide over there this morning, I don't know if it's been changed. I don't know if people bet it up, but I mean, look at that right there.
Ooh.
50% edge on this Jeremiah Love over of 11.5. You can see just a big difference just because you can bet at 14.5 at FanDuel, right?
Yeah.
So somebody there has an idea of what's going on at FanDuel. Okay,
I'm gonna guess FanDuel is the right one there.
Yeah, but I also think that this has been available this morning, so it might technically still be there at ESPN. So we'll see, but Love has been he got hurt against USC, didn't play the second half. They had some time off. They played Indiana, but didn't really need him because they blew him out to start. And this other running back group has been good. They come out after 10 days off or 10 days between games. And they have said basically that he's healthy. He should be good. 11.5. If you can bet over 11.5, that's just too low of a number for a starting running back. If you want to say he won't be successful, that's one thing, but they're going to run the football. And so, if you're playing in a playoff and it's a tight ball game and Love is healthy, which they say he is, they're going to give it to Love. They're not going to put in Jadarian Price and hammer the rock with him. They're going to do that with Jeremiah Love.
Yeah. How about the Trevor Etienne number here?
I like it. I mean, they just announced an injury to one of the backup running backs. You have Nate Frazier to worry about, but I mean, 15.5 is a pretty, I would say, relatively low number. Gunnar Stockton at quarterback, you could see them run it 60 to 65% of the time. Wouldn't shock me. We have them at 55% of the time rushing. So I like it. Notre Dame's good defense. Instead of, targeting this rushing line for ATN, maybe you do it just via the attempts, which I think is a safer way to play. I think everybody would agree with that. So I think he sees 17, 18, 19 rushing attempts, which is essentially what we have there at 17.8.
Yeah. It's, I mean, you're seeing a good number. It's not quite as great as that ESPN bet number we're getting, like the ESPN versus FanDuel number that we're getting for Love. And of course, that FanDuel number is now moved to 16.5 here, but you're still getting something. ESPN bet's slacking on these.
Yeah, I mean, if those are they should be good in terms of like still available. If they are, I think those are both great ones to hit. Gives you some fun end of New Year's Day bets to enjoy.
Exactly. All right. Do we want to talk about some of the games that are going on before?
Yeah, let's. What do we got? Was it Texas, Arizona State?
And Scatterbo has been making noise.
Scatterboo. Yeah, so Scatterboo, this is a funny one. We like the under on rushing attempts. We like the over on yards.
That is a very funny one.
This is a rare one. I think I would avoid the attempts because this offense is going to run through Scatterboo. Like, I think they just use him nonstop.
Yeah.
That's how they win. Levitt is not a volume passer. He's just a way more efficient passer who's missing his best receiver. So I think they use Scatterboo a bunch, and I like the over there. You know, if you look at the Texas situation, we have them kind of split. I want to say was Wisner around 50 to 55% of usage. We have Blue around 25 to 30% of usage. And subsequently we see two unders. You know, I think the Blue under is good, especially at like plus money, which I don't think people can typically bet on Fanatics, right?
Yeah.
There's a world where Wisner is more hurt than we realize. They've come out and said he was banged up. He could have finished the game against Clemson. He just didn't. I mean, Blue looked great. Why would you kind of push Wisner if you didn't have to? But I think like with those numbers being what they are, 96.5 on Fliff, like that's I don't know why you get a 10-yard advantage on some of these other sites. So if it's available, I would definitely hit that under there.
Yeah. All right. How about the passing game for these two teams here?
Yeah. So like I told you, Levitt's not a volume guy. So that's why you see 174.5 being a nice under, especially at plus money at ESPN. Missing their best receiver and Jordan Tyson. Some of these other receivers are fine, but they're not super talented. And this Texas team, I don't have the numbers in front of me. They probably have given up 175 yards like twice on the season. So, you know, I know Levitt has talked a big game and he's confident, and this is a fun Arizona State team to root for. But like Texas's pass defense has been absolutely incredible the entire season against all sorts of opponents. So I think the under on the passing game here is good. Conversely, the over on I was gonna say Ewers is good. I like it. Don't love it. I mean, 250 is a fine number. It looks like Isaiah Bond is going to be back, which means that they're going to be full strength at receiver. You just wonder, does this game script shift to a bunch of rushing and not passing? That would be my only concern. That's why I kind of think like, not love. But in this game, you're targeting one of the worst, technically speaking, defenses on the day or on the entire 2 days, or I should say maybe just the playoff. And so that's why I think like an over makes sense if you wanted to go that route.
Yeah. I mean, I have a feeling that this game could just be that it's an SEC team versus a team that, let's face it, had a great season, had a great story, but is not up to snuff here. And this could be a blowout.
I mean, if you're an Arizona State fan, you're just like hype, right? Like you love this. I don't think you could be in no shade if they lose. I don't think anybody thought they would get it this far. So
they were
no shade to them.
Finish last in this is like when Syracuse made the Final Four when we were at 10 seed, and we were just playing with house money the entire time. We came back and beat Virginia. Awesome. We were like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then we lost to North Carolina. We were all like, well, we weren't supposed to get here in the first place.
Exactly. So looking at this receiving line market here, I mean, Scatterboo pops as the biggest one. I think technically speaking, it's correct. Like all the numbers are right. We have him for like an aggressive amount of usage, as you can see with 2.6 receptions. But I don't know. Some of these playoffs, man, like we know who Arizona State's best player is. It's Scatterboo. Yeah. Like you just think that like, sure, all season they've done this, and that's what we've projected, that obviously larger sample size and taking into account some of the big play game or big game part of it. I don't know if I want to go with it, kind of like Genty, right? Like the numbers say that's correct. I just don't know how much I want to actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's one of those. I mean, we were dealing with the same thing on the blitz with Saquon Barkley every week. The blitz always liked his unders, and it was just, well, this isn't a good bet to make.
that happens, if we were to kind of make some crazy shifts, then all of a sudden we're big braining unders elsewhere, like maybe these other players are impacted. I think the way to target this game, which is funny because we like the over on Ewers, is I like the under on Matthew Golden. I think Gunnar Helm is fine under there. Isaiah Bond, at 27.5 yards, like I didn't think I would like an over, but 27.5 yards is very low. It's hard not to like it there. So
yeah,
I think that's a fine bet. And I would just make sure, obviously, he's healthy. You don't hear anything about playing half the game or it's going to be limited or something like that, which we haven't heard anything of. You could honestly, considering the game and the fact that these have been all out a while, you could probably wait until tomorrow morning to get more information. So I probably would do that if you want to bet Bond. I don't think the line's going to move that much, but I think Golden under on Fliff. Again, Fliff, this is like a promo for them all day. I think the under on Golden is probably my favorite of this game. Just because this is a lot of mouths to feed. DeAndre Moore Jr. is not even listed, and he's an impact in the receiving room. So I think an under on Golden is probably the best of this receiver group.
Now, how about the receptions market here? Because Natish is asking about that Wisner number.
Well, let's see. Well, at plus 142, we're gonna love that. It's gonna be close. This is gonna be a little volatile, but at plus 142, I think you have to consider it a great bet.
Yeah.
There's no way. I don't think there's any reason for them to not use him in the passing game if he's slightly banged up. Like either he's going to go or he's not. So I don't think you have to worry about injury concerns there. If he plays, I think this is a great bet. It's a good call out there at plus 142. What was I didn't see the message go. What was
that was ESPN moved Love to minus 150. Would love to snag. Would you snag or wait and see if it goes to 12.5 at a lower price?
I don't know. Bird in hand, two in the bush. To be honest, I think whatever you're comfortable with. I don't know how one carry is going to change too much, 11.5 to 12.5. So for me, I'd probably wait to see if it goes to 12.5, but you'd have to be really on it because that could quickly become 13.5 or just a way worse price. We just missed it.
Yeah, got to be careful with that. Tate saying nuke Scattaboo under 3.5 plus 100 on Fliff.
I wouldn't nuke. I would never nuke. The concern there is, do they just filter every piece of the offense towards Scattaboo?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't surprise me. Be technically atypical, but I think that's a good bet. I just wouldn't nuke it.
Yeah, it's a good bet to do, not necessarily one where you want to be overloading yourself on it.
Yeah, agreed. Some good reception lines here. Well, let's see here. Oh, yeah.
Just joining.
Yeah, you missed it, Dan. We talked Attaway. We talked briefly Caden Durham if you wanted to get a little bit weird. But yeah, Attaway, definitely the ladder that we like in terms of the rushing yards start. I think that game's at 3. So like that one. Yeah. Some interesting and good receiving lines here, though. They get us with the plus money is what it is, right? Like Golden at 3.5 at plus 126. Scattaboo under at plus 100. These are the plus 102 for Bond over. Like, I think all these are fine bets. I wouldn't go overboard just because, I think Weissman's probably the best of the bunch because you get the best, like plus 136 now. 2.5 is a low number, but I think all of these are viable. Probably wouldn't hammer any of them or nuke them. But I do think they're in play. Yeah.
Crazy Carl asking, sorry, kind of new here. All good, Crazy Carl. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. What projections are these going off of? There are our own Unabated college football projections from our team here at Unabated. And so if you want to check them out, if you want to get a demo as well, shoot me a DM. I'm TV at Work on Twitter. I'll get you all set up. But yeah, check out unabated.com. We do these projections for our members, and they've been pretty dang good this season, Chris. We've had a good time.
Yeah, I mean, bowl season's probably, if anybody had a bad run and during the regular season, they've certainly made it up in the bowl season. Bowl season's been insane. Some bad lines plus a mixture of just like completely understanding what teams are going to do when they have to replace certain players.
Yeah.
Great example of it is this the BYU Darius Lassiter line, 4.5 receptions when he was already announced that he was going to not play in the first half.
Yeah.
Was a pretty fun one. That was available on shockingly Fliff. So I feel like if you just play at Fliff, you're in a great spot until you get limited from what I hear. So only one other game, I think.
We've got one more to go, and it's going to be one of the most exciting ones because we got the number 1 and number 2 team in the country facing off here in Ohio State and Oregon.
Yeah, and this is a tough one. Like I pushed, to Crazy Carl, if you want to kind of know a little bit more. Me and another guy named Ben, we both like grind these out, right? Like to give you a little bit of idea of how we do it, we create the projections for each team, and then whoever, the other person essentially waits until props are up for them. We validate and audit the projections, make sure that like based on what we're seeing and like did we miss anything, and just making sure we don't see anything crazy. We kind of compare against some other markets, some other people we know, and then we essentially release them with an announced time every single day in Discord. This one is tough because we've seen them play, and I'm pretty sure both of these guys hit over on these lines. But I mean, these are two great defenses. The Vegas, the books, the totals are not high for either team, like relatively speaking to what they have been all year. And like 250 yards in college is still a substantial amount of yards to go against a great defense. I think I would much rather. I think I'm more comfortable with an under on Will Howard because I think he's less of a quarterback than Dylan Gabriel. But I think these are both completely viable, correct bets to make.
I mean, again, this expects to be one of those games where we see a little bit of more defense, a little bit more ground and pound, a little bit of work on the ground. How about the rushing yards market here? No surprise, we're seeing a couple overs popping with it.
Yeah, Judkins and Henderson are both great runners that are going to be drafted top 4 rounds in this next draft. Like they're talented players, running back by committee, mid 40s lines, like or mid 50s for FanDuel here, 49.5 on Judkins at FanDuel. Like we like the overs. I mean, they want to be a little bit of like what Michigan is in terms of like bullying people and owning the line of scrimmage, which is funny because they have the absolute like aliens at receiver, which is shocking that they don't want to use them, but they have just run the ball more than they should, and that's why we see overs. Noah Whittington is an RB2. This one's tough because against Ohio State the first time, he didn't get a ton of usage. But since then, he's seen his usage uptick. I mean, he had 10 carries, I think, against Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. So, like, why would they not use him in a almost similar fashion against Ohio State? So I think if you're going to get the line at 29.5, like, I think that's an over that you have to take. If it creeps up higher, 33.5, 35.5, maybe that's where you say, yeah, I'll steer clear of it. But otherwise, 29.5, like I think you can definitely bet that and feel good about it.
Yeah. Now, how about the receiving market when it comes to these two teams? Because we're projecting some quarterback unders. It's translating a bit to this receiving market as well.
Yeah, Evan Stewart at 27% edge on Prize Picks. I would watch out if that becomes available on a book that you can bet. I like that one a good bit. He's like in the mix for receiver 2/receiver 3 with Trayshawn Holden. Terrence Ferguson is a completely viable tight end. Don't bet it, but just good to know that like if you're betting an Evan Stewart under, like it's a deep room. Tez Johnson is kind of like the Saquon Barkley for you in the blitz. Like this guy is insane, super athletic, super fast, like kind of like a Tank Dell type, shifty, hard to project, quite honestly, because we've been under on him a bunch and it hasn't been successful. 4% edge, I would just avoid that personally. If that line moves higher, then I think you could maybe target that a little bit. 80 yards is pretty aggressive on an underdog, but yeah, Travion Henderson, that's a running back line that's pretty volatile. He had a bunch of receptions against Tennessee, but like that's fairly atypical for him. And low 20s for a running back is a pretty aggressive line. Like Scadaboo is like 28.5 or 29.5, and he's the only running back that plays. So you can understand why an under would pop there.
Yeah. And it's going to be a game where we expect to see a lot of different targets getting the ball.
Yeah, I mean, G. Scott, relevant tight end. Judkins is using the passing game a little bit. Gabuka, obviously, receiver one with them. And then like Jeremiah Smith is another guy. Like both teams have fairly deep rooms. I'd say Ohio State uses more guys than Oregon. So that's why you see like these unders on all these different guys on for the Buckeyes. But, G. Scott has seen a little bit more usage recently, but grand scheme of things, when you're playing Oregon, are you going to throw it to G. Scott or are you going to throw it to Jeremiah Smith and Igbuka? You're probably going to do the latter. So if that pops up on books that you like to bet on, I think those are good under as well.
Yeah. Brett Pagney saying, hey, Chris and Thomas. Hey, Brett, great to see you here. Happy New Year. And Natish says, as you talked about already, the Evan Stewart under.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, he's been completely underwhelming on the season, transferring in from A&M. Tez Johnson was hurt for a little bit, and he didn't really pop off and have a bunch of great games. Like he didn't step into that receiver one role. So I'm absolutely no issue with Evan Stewart. If he pops, I'm actually going to take a look and see if he's on underdog after this. Cause if it's 38.5, I personally would hit that myself.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Chris, I think that's going to get us through the entire slate here.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've released like 10 or 12 teams today, which was great. Fun to do.
We got a full hour in just talking about them.
Yeah, we didn't have to pull some things out of thin air or talk about, if you prefer Tom or Thomas. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely great. Natish is still giving us some questions here because Trayvon Henderson under receptions. Sure, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, plus another plus money one, right? Like there's just a lot of mouths to feed in a game total that's fairly low against a great defense. Will Howard has not necessarily shown to do a bunch of checkdowns. He's a little bit more like scramble heavy. G. Scott at plus 140, that's going to be super volatile. So just be aware there. Tez Johnson plus 110, that'll be tight. Like if it's me, I think he ends with 6 catches or 7 catches. It's going to really toe the line. So, Henderson just very, 2.5 receptions is nice because of the plus money, like even at like FanDuel at 108. But it's just a little bit of a volatile prop to bet. Yeah.
Well, Chris, I think that is going to do it for us and get us through to the new year here. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to be done working for the year.
I think that's it. I took the day off from my real job, and I'm ready to just pack it in. Yeah. Come back next year.
By the way,
final show. By the way,
yeah, final show of the final show of the year. We've got a couple. We'll have a couple more cover 2 props.
We'll have props. I don't know if we'll do another cover 2 though, because all these games are spread out. I mean, actually, you know what? I think we have to do a national championship game.
Come on, yeah,
I take it back. Final prop show of the year. We'll have to do a shorter because it's only one game. But I think a national championship game one. I mean, maybe the semis is in play too.
It's bad enough that we didn't do a special hour-long feature just on the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah. I mean, come on. And we got an amazing game, too.
It's so good.
Classic.
And this is another promotion for the Discord. That morning, it was close. I was sweating myself. Was telling people Cam Ward's going to sit at half. Very, very likely. Very, very much not going to play the full game based on everything we read. And he sat at half. Anybody that bet the under on the passing yards sweated for 2 quarters and then celebrated at halftime. So, get in Discord, get in the Alpha chat, which is fun. Pop-Tarts Bowl. Have you seen like the running joke going around of like people and like texting their wives and stuff? And like the wife's like, you have one more text about the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Yep. It is the greatest. It is a tradition unlike any other. And the Pop-Tarts truly understood, like you go all in. And
they have hired the right people to be Pop-Tarts, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you I think underrated Pop-Tart Bowl moment was when Beck selected the cinnamon roll Pop-Tart. They put him up there. Did you see? He was like shaking. Like he did a great job of acting, like shaking down the toaster. It was incredible.
Yep. It was so fantastic. I mean, the moment when the Miami mascot came over and just bit the Pop-Tart and he's just gone, like they were so good.
Every part of it was good.
Yes.
Every part of it was good. We need every bowl to lean into it,
Yeah. Like
But
the Duke's Mayo Bowl is in shambles right now because they're like, we were the big dogs. We were dunking you in mayo. And now it's like, you're only dunking someone in mayo. Like, come on.
That's all you got.
You need to encase the losing coach in a jar of mayonnaise for the year.
They got to do more. I don't know
Yeah.
what they got to do, but they got to do more. So.
Exactly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are not going to do any more. We are going to, in fact, get out of here now. Joey also saying he hit huge on Shadur and Ward. So congratulations there, man.
Yes.
And hey, it pays to be in the Discord. So Crazy Carl, if you're not already a member, check out the link in the description below. The Discord is free to join. The College Football Alpha channels, that you gotta be a member. But hey, still come check us out some more, Carl. We would love to show you the tools and how everything works. So like I said, hit me up. And hey, I hope everybody has a happy, safe, and fun new year, and that we make a lot of money on these bowl games here. We'll be back before the national championship, maybe the semifinals. We'll figure that out. We'll keep you guys posted in the Discord. Good luck to everyone. And for the last time in 2024, let's cash some tickets. We'll see you next year, everybody.